He then led Bian Junwoo into the living room and took out the footage captured by the mechanical mouse, playing it on a large screen for the investigation team. When Mr. Bian saw the footage, he was finally relieved. Things were exactly as Zhang Yi had said. Although it was impossible to accurately estimate the scale of the zombie horde from the video, a conservative guess would be at least 1 million. After all, the mechanical mouse had no room to maneuver in the area. At that moment, everyone in the team felt a chill run down their spines. They weren't afraid of the zombies, but rather, they were worried about who had been secretly controlling them all along. Earlier, Zhang Yi looked at the silent group and slowly said, "Your expressions are exactly like mine when I first saw the zombie horde. At that time, I was also shocked. Their numbers are indeed overwhelming, so I had to shamelessly ask for your help. Without you, we wouldn't be able to defend Tianhai City." Faced with this sudden situation, Bian Junwoo couldn't make a quick decision. So, he cautiously asked, "How many people know about this?" Zhang Yi replied that only he and a strategist in his team knew the full story. The rest were unaware. Upon hearing this, Bian Junwoo gave Zhang Yi a deep look and asked, "Are you suggesting this whole thing might be orchestrated by someone?" Zhang Yi shook his head. "I dare not make such a conclusion. This matter is beyond my capabilities, which is why I wanted to ask Mr. Bian for guidance. If even you don't know how to deal with it, then I'll have to stay away from this mess." Zhang Yi then joked, "Mr. Bian, I hope Blizzard City provides free meals and lodging." But Bian Junwoo had no time for Zhang Yi's humor. He directly asked, "Other than this footage, do you have any other information?" Zhang Yi shook his head and said he wasn't a professional investigator, and finding this evidence was already a stroke of luck. Bian Junwoo pondered for a moment and said, "I understand the situation now. I will figure out how to handle it later, but for now, don't overthink it. Moving forward, the entire Tianhai City will need to contribute." Zhang Yi hesitated slightly because, at that point, his team was the only one capable of resisting the zombie horde in Tianhai City. The other groups had lost over 90% of their forces. Expecting them to fight off such a large zombie force again would be difficult. But Bian Junwoo remained firm, as Tianhai City was their home, and everyone had to contribute. Seeing that he wouldn't get much out of this, Zhang Yi reluctantly agreed to Bian Junwoo's request. As Bian Junwoo prepared to leave with his team, Zhang Yi asked, "Aren't you going to stay for a meal before leaving?" However, Bian Junwoo promptly declined Zhang Yi's offer, saying, "No, we don't have the habit of resting in others' homes." Since that was the case, Zhang Yi didn't insist. He smiled and said, "All right then, if you need any help, feel free to let me know." Bian Junwoo simply nodded, still uncertain about the situation, and wondering if Zhang Yi himself could be the one controlling the zombie horde. Zhang Yi watched them leave, finally letting out a sigh of relief. In fact, Zhang Yi had withheld some crucial information. He feared that if Bian Junwoo knew everything, he might become too scared to act. So, Zhang Yi silently prayed, "Don't blame me, I'm just trying to survive." Meanwhile, Bian Junwoo was still struggling to figure out who was controlling the zombies. The atmosphere in the entire team was tense, and Wu Di even thought that Zhang Yi was playing both sides. At this moment, Bai Li Chongqing voiced his opinion, suggesting they invite the 10 top commanders of Tianhai to join them in investigating the location Zhang Yi mentioned. After all, with more people, the investigation would go faster. But Bian Junwoo decisively rejected the idea. He hadn't yet figured out who was behind all this, and making such a move would only alert the enemy. At that point, not only would they fail to investigate, but they might not even see any zombies. His words made the others realize that if this was not a natural disaster but a man-made one, then the mastermind behind it must be one of the 5 major factions. This revelation left the entire investigation team in a grim mood, especially Wu Di, who had always suspected Zhang Yi. He believed Zhang Yi was the most likely suspect because his force was the only one that hadn't suffered any casualties during the zombie crisis. However, Bian Junwoo disagreed. In his view, Zhang Yi had no reason to do such a thing. First, he wasn't lacking in supplies, and second, his companions were all alive and well. Moreover, he was the one who had actively provided the intel about the zombies. Unless he was crazy, even if you gave him 100 chances, he wouldn't dare provoke us, the representatives of the Jiangnan district. After Bian Junwu left, Zhang Yi had been toying with a rocket, knowing that once the investigation team arrived at the Ao mountain range, war would be imminent. After much thought, he decided it was time to inform the shelter. Xiao Ai, help me notify everyone in the shelter to come to the living room, Zhang Yi instructed. Upon hearing Xiao Ai's call, Yang Xinxin became excited, his eyes gleaming with a hint of gold. Is it time to start the next step of the plan? He wondered. Meanwhile, the others gathered in the living room, curious about what was going on. Zhang Yi usually only summoned everyone for major issues, so they were eager to know what had happened. Thankfully, Zhang Yi didn't keep them in suspense. He directly explained the whole situation. This time, the zombie crisis in Tianhai City wasn't a natural disaster but a man-made one. There was a huge conspiracy at play, and all of them had been manipulated. Everyone was shocked by this revelation. The air in the room became tense, as if they were listening to a suspenseful story full of twists and turns. The protagonist of this story, however, was the heavily damaged Baishui Reef. The only person who remained calm was Yang Xinxin, as he knew that by this point, the investigation team had likely been tricked into heading to Ao Mountain by Zhang Yi. As long as Zhang Yi played his cards right, everything would remain within his control. Zhang Yi then carefully explained to his companions about Yuan Kongyi's abilities, emphasizing that Baishui Reef's ultimate goal was to absorb the abilities of people like them. He showed them live footage, and they were even more stunned. They hadn't expected so many zombies to be hidden in the Ao mountain range. If they emerged from the subway tunnels, none of them, not even Zhang Yi, would survive the zombie horde. As the live footage played, Zhang Yi said, "If Yuan Kongyi's ability is to return from death, then these zombies must be something he created with his imagination. And you all know what his goal is: to kill us and take our abilities." Hearing this, Yang Sha's face turned pale. Zhang Yi had just explained that to absorb someone else's abilities, one must first ingest ice and fire. And in the entire shelter, only Yang Sha had taken it. Didn't that mean Yang Sha was doomed? Although his ability was more supportive in nature, it was still highly useful. More importantly, to someone like Yuan Kongye, killing one person or killing 1,000 made no difference. He had no reason to spare Yang Sha. Noticing his worry, Zhang Yi reassured him, "Don't worry for now. Everything is still within my expectations. If nothing goes wrong, Yuan Kongyi's plan won't succeed." Upon hearing this, Liang Yu, still concerned, asked, "If your guesses are correct, then Yuan Kongye has likely already absorbed the abilities of dozens, if not hundreds, of people. Are you sure you can handle him?" Zhang Yi's eyes flickered as he calmly responded, "Don't worry. I've already thought of a way to deal with him. But it's not me who will handle him." Everyone was curious and asked, "Then who?" Zhang Yi pointed in the direction of Ao Mountain and said, "Of course, it's Bian Junwu. He's the only one capable of stopping that woman now." When Bian Junwu's name came to mind, everyone nodded in agreement. They had all witnessed Bian Yi's terrifying power firsthand, and the memory of it was still fresh. None of them doubted Zhang Yi's words. Zhang Yi then seriously explained his plan, emphasizing that they shouldn't feel burdened. He had chosen to tell them not to instill fear, but to ensure they could survive. In Zhang Yi's plan, whether or not Bian Junwu could defeat Yuan Kongye, the evil woman would still pay a heavy price. The key point lay with Zhongnan Dachu. If Bian Junwu failed, Dachu wouldn't give Yuan Kongye the opportunity to surround and kill Zhang Yi. If Bian Junwu succeeded, the problem would be solved directly. So, there's no need to worry too much. At worst, we abandon this shelter and escape Tianhai City, Zhang Yi concluded. Hearing this, everyone looked helpless. At this point, they could only follow Zhang Yi's plan. Zhang Yi then instructed everyone to stay on high alert and be ready at all times, even while sleeping. They had to be prepared to retreat at any moment. Otherwise, if the Grim Reaper came, none of them would escape. Finally, Zhang Yi took out the remote control for the mechanical mouse, smiling wickedly as he said, "Let it lead the way for Bian Junwu." At the deepest part of the Ao Mountain subway station, a mouse suddenly began to move. What was it planning to do? It all started when Bian Junwu had arrived at the entrance of the Ao Mountain subway tunnel. As usual, he had Meng Xiyu use his abilities to check the situation inside the tunnel. Without delay, Meng Xiyu activated his powers, and a purple wave of energy gathered around his eyes. In an instant, he could clearly see everything within a 5-kilometer radius. With Meng Saiyu's ability, the investigation team began exploring the tunnel. However, after searching for over 10 minutes, they still couldn't find any zombies. At this point, Wu Di was visibly displeased and grumbled, "Could it be that Zhang Yi gave us the wrong location? Is he messing with us?" Before he could continue, Mr. Bian interrupted him. "Stick with the team and stop complaining. Don't you find it suspiciously clean around here? This location is highly suspicious." Just then, Meng Saiyu froze in place, his expression suddenly filled with disbelief. Mr. Bian noticed and quickly went over. "What's wrong, Xiao Yu? Did you find something unusual?" Meng Saiyu, with a worried look, replied, "Zhang Yi wasn't lying. There are indeed a lot of zombies ahead, so many that I can't even see the end of them." Hearing this, everyone furrowed their brows. However, Bian Junwu had no intention of disturbing the zombie horde. Instead, he gave a direct order. "Mark this location and contact the Zhongnan district to launch a missile strike on this spot." He had no choice but to make this decision. The remaining forces in Tianhai City were not strong enough to deal with such a large group of zombies, so they needed to use more powerful weapons. But just as they were about to leave, a series of deep growls echoed from the far end of the tunnel. The sound was like a flood surging from the tunnel, even causing the ground beneath them to tremble. Bai Li Chongqing immediately sensed something was wrong. "No, the zombie horde is coming." The team was confused. They had been cautious, so why had they still alerted the zombies? There was no time for Bian Junwu to think about this. He quickly issued another command. "Everyone, retreat to the surface immediately. Avoid engaging with the zombies." With that, the team began running back, but the zombie horde surged after them like a flood. Their eyes gleamed with bloodthirsty red light, a stark contrast to the zombies they had encountered at Baishui sect. Among the horde were massive bronze-armored flying lions, who flapped their wings and rapidly closed in on the investigation team. Seeing that one of the flying lions was about to catch up with him, Wu Di had no choice but to fight while retreating. With a swift hand, he struck with a powerful floating blow. Though he successfully repelled the flying lion, he sensed something was off. These zombies were clearly much stronger than the ones they had faced before. At that moment, Bai Li Chongqing realized what was going on. The zombies they had dealt with at Baishui sect were just trash. Someone had been controlling the zombie horde to deceive them, making them believe the mission was complete so they would leave Tianhai City. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He turned back and unleashed a deadly strike. He understood now that their mission was no longer just to kill the Lion King but to find the true mastermind behind the horde. Bai Li Chongqing then stood at the back of the group and said, "You all take the boss and retreat to the surface. I'll cover the rear." Wu Di nodded. As a reinforcement-type fighter, Bai Li Chongqing's ability was to enhance his physical capabilities. As one of the top warriors in Blizzard City, he was nearly unbeatable in close combat. Wu Di wasn't worried about him facing any danger. With his spear in hand, Bai Li Chongqing stood alone against the massive zombie horde, while Bian Junwu and the others didn't even look back. Their trust in Bai Li Chongqing was absolute. With Bai Li Chongqing's fearless, Mr. Bian managed to escape from the subway tunnel successfully. As soon as Mr. Bian got out, they signaled everyone to quickly get into the car. The group opened the car doors and jumped in. The next second, a loud explosion echoed from the subway tunnel. Then, they saw Bai Li Chongqing, looking disheveled, running out from the subway entrance. Drive quickly, drive quickly." Bai Li Chongqing didn't explain further. There were simply too many zombies. Meng Saiyu kicked one last time and left the subway entrance, with the zombies behind also surging out from the entrance. Mr. Bian's car hadn't gone very far when the fly zombie burst out from the tunnel, its mighty wings roaring. Mr. Bian saw through the rearview mirror that the red armor flying lion was moving too fast, closely chasing the car. At this moment, Wu Di shouted, "Drive faster. It's caught up." Meng Saiyu replied, "I floored the gas pedal, it can't go any faster." So Wu Di gritted his teeth, leaned out, and activated his floating cannon ability. At this moment, the sniper Qi Guangming also started shooting from the car's rooftop skylight. However, their firepower was insignificant in the face of the tsunami-like horde of zombies. In an instant, A zombie attacked Qi Guangming from the side. Qi Guangming felt hopeless. Everything was too close to react. At the critical moment, a flash of gold flying zombie turned to dust. Qi Guangming turned his head and saw that Captain Bian Junwu had saved his life. Bian Junwu then leaned out of the car and activated his energy to annihilate. In the blink of an eye, golden light burst forth, and a large group of zombies dissipated in the golden light. However, many zombies were still following closely. Bian Junwu's ability slightly increased the distance between the horde and the car. Bian Junwu then started to cough violently. Every time he used his ability, it consumed his lifespan. Bai Li Chongqing said, "Captain, these zombies are incredibly tireless. Running away like this is not a solution. We need support." Bian Junwu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, "First, head to the nearest apocalypse base, and then notify all forces in Tianhai City to send reinforcements." Meng Xiyu looked at the satellite map and said, "Captain, we're almost at Yangsheng base." Bian Junwu replied, "Notify the other forces immediately, and have them send people to gather at Yangsheng base to deal with the zombie attack." The horde of zombies behind also followed closely. Bian Junwu's car surged towards Yangsheng base like a tidal wave.